Texas!
He's a 10.
I choose this family.
Hi guys, welcome to episode 60 of 911LoneStar Round Up. I'm one of your hosts, Katie, and with me are my lovely co-hosts, Grace.
Hi guys.
And EJ.
Hello.
Today we will be talking about season 5, episode 11 and 12 of OG 911, titled Outside Looking In and Boston. There's a lot to talk about, and this is also our episode 60, so that's quite exciting.
Whoop, whoop. Break out the party favors.
I will just
also, shout out to anyone who's been around since the beginning.
Oh yeah,
yes.
love it. We love our fans.
Yes.
Yeah.
Couldn't be here without y'all.
Exactly. I will say there is trigger warnings for this episode. Obviously, Maddie and both Eddie dealing with a lot. So yeah, we'll obviously get more warnings when we get closer to the episodes.
Right.
But just right off the bat, warning, I guess.
Right off the bat with the first episode, we have Eddie really struggling with some mental health issues. And we'll deal with the other warnings when we get to the second episode.
Exactly. So with episode 11, our first episode back, we meet a few new characters. We have Jonah, who Han likes to refer to as Monday because they don't stick around these new paramedics she's getting partnered with, and she doesn't bother to learn his name. Yeah. And she's like, there's a new one of you every shift. And I'm like, okay, that's a mood.
Also a definite way to make someone feel very insignificant.
I know,
really.
I get it. She's missing Chimney. I mean, same, but maybe
I do miss the duo.
Yeah, that's it.
Because Monday or Jonah, he seems pretty nice, It's just kind of sorry, dude. You kind of ended up with the jilted partner.
Right. And it's so funny. When I first saw Jonah, I'm like, man, he looks like somebody familiar. And then I was at church this past weekend and I saw the person and it clicked. I'm like, that's who he reminds me of. I go to church with somebody, I swear, looks just like Jonah. And a friend of mine was watching it the other day and I said, doesn't he look like, and then I said the name and she goes, oh my God, you're right. He did. I was like, that's rarely ever happens, but I'm like, oh my God, that's so funny.
Honestly, yeah, definitely. I kind of wish, I just thought about this, but I kind of wish Eddie and Han had worked as a paramedic duo longer, because we really didn't get that long.
Dude, I love that duo.
I know, same. R.I.P.
The trouble they could have gotten into or gotten Buck out of.
Oh my God,
that's accurate.
Out of trouble. Oh my gosh.
So then the next notable thing, so we're not going to talk about everything because otherwise this episode would be 3 hours long. But the next notable thing is at the Grant house for family dinner where May comes over. Obviously Harry lives there with them, and Bobby asks when she gets home how her day was, and she's just like, you mean you want to know how Eddie's doing? And he's like, well, how is he?
He doesn't even try and deny. He's like, yeah. How's my oldest son?
Yeah, you're right.
Exactly.
I want to know how he's doing. So then we get into Eddie, and Eddie is getting ready for the day, looking fine as fuck.
Yes. Looking good.
Let's all just take a moment to appreciate Eddie. Yes.
This is the time when we got Eddie and Carlos in one night, looking hot, fine. And I was just like,
oh my gosh,
we couldn't survive.
We could. It was a nice treat.
Yes.
And I see him running on the treadmill, getting ready for work, breakfast with Chris, and then he brings him to school, going to work at the dispatch center. He has this routine, and we're seeing this new-ish routine, and getting the word of the day from May, and getting cooking advice from Linda. And
I love Linda and Eddie.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I love that.
We know eventually he's gonna go back to the 118, but can we let that friendship stay even when he's not there?
Gosh, yes. Or at least just her continuing to teach him how to cook, because he's learning how to cook. I love it.
Yeah.
Finally. I feel like Eddie's just one of those who got thrust into it when Shannon left and never had a chance to learn, but he kind of had to do it. but he never had time because he was working all the time. So he just was a terrible cook and he had to cook anyway.
Right.
So now he's finally learned, like,
so he just
growth.
learns to rely on boxes of mac and cheese, which it
And
sounds
salads.
like from Chris, it sounds like things didn't go so well even with that stuff.
How do you mess that up? It's directions are literally on the side of the box.
I always have wondered that.
I mean, I know people that mess up
Somehow-
everything, so
Right. Somehow he would figure out a way. For him being a firefighter, I'm sure he'd burn the pasta, macaroni.
Oh yeah.
Whatever you want to call it.
That's true. Yeah, so we see that he's getting to his work at the dispatch center, and he is literally the social media person for the fire department. I'm like, okay, that's ironic.
Eddie, who hates Hildy, who
Hildy.
hates technology. Eddie is the. I'm like, at least he didn't say the Twitter. Just
That would have been like the pinpoint stereotypical thing we would expect.
right.
Mhm.
And
I'm just like, honey, you're the introvert of the group. How are you working being a PR manager? I'm sorry, but like, considering after firefighter jobs, I would expect him and Buck to have been switched.
Oh,
I
gosh.
agree.
And he would have made a pretty good fire marshal, I'm just saying. And Buck could have handled the PR. Then again, he might have caused an international incident by accident. Just by things.
Buck would
Yeah.
try to be the Firefox, just saying.
Oh
Right.
my god, yes. But still, you'd expect to see it switch. I'm just like, Eddie, social media, what?
Right. I think in the fire department they call it the public information officer, but yeah, social media, basically what they do.
Yeah.
It's hilarious. It's funny. Like, Eddie is not the person I could see behind an account like that.
Yeah. Which
And that's why we see him going insane.
yeah.
I'm just gonna say relatable. One day behind that job, and I'd be ready to jump,
I think anybody would
like,
that doesn't
get out
sound-
of the office.
Yeah, that doesn't sound
Because
too exciting. Yeah,
I'm
and
not
like
an office worker.
yeah. Well, not even just that, but like he doesn't seem like the type to like I don't even know like what it is. Like also like the promos really misled us because everyone once they saw him like doing like when he dispatches, they thought,
Yeah,
oh, he's
yeah.
gonna be a dispatcher.
Right.
But
Like,
see,
they
I
really-
never understood. Like, yes, I definitely was like, oh, he's gonna be a dispatcher, but at the same time, I also never understood why he was still in his FD uniform.
I didn't either. I was
Which
just
this
like,
now
huh?
explains why, because he's still
Because
technically
he's
a
still
firefighter.
technically not according to anyone he talks to, but yeah, technically he's still a firefighter.
Yeah.
It's just not quite that way.
Right. Yeah. And like we see like his day repeat over and over the same thing over and over and like fixing
Mhm.
the printer jams and like
Oh, yeah, and the way he was saying it out loud, like he was like pretending like he's working on a patient or something, it was hilarious.
right.
I'm like,
God,
he
yes.
has got to be bored out of his mind
Uh-huh.
because he's
Mhm.
such an active person in general. He's not a sit around and stay behind type of person.
Literally, he's ex-military,
Mm-hmm.
ex-active firefighter at this point.
Yeah.
And like, you know, he grew up also in like a more rural life, so all his life he has been active,
Mm.
and suddenly he's stuck behind a desk.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I can feel his insanity.
Mhm. Then we get Eddie having Buck and Taylor over with him and Chris for dinner, and
I'd only just forgotten that Taylor was there.
why did Taylor
Yeah.
have to be there?
You know,
Like,
she
literally
ruined it.
Did nothing for the scene. It's funny because Buck was like eating like a freaking animal.
You know, oh, this is
Oh my
good.
god.
He's like moaning, and eating, and it's the
Taylor's
jokes.
just
Taylor's just sitting here. Everyone was saying a couple things. People were like, "Buck is eating like he's in prison." People are like, when I thought that Buck was going to be acting like that, I didn't think his girlfriend would be sitting there. I'm like, oh my god, that's so true though. And Buck's in disbelief that Eddie made that dinner. So he's like, "Come on, Carla, you can come out. You don't have to hide anymore."
right.
And Taylor's hardly eating because Buck told her not to eat because Eddie can't cook. But Eddie's like, I'm learning. Like, I have all this time I can learn. And I mean, he is.
He's not wrong.
Yeah.
He does
And-
have the time.
Yeah. And then Buck is like, oh, well, when you come back to the firehouse, you got to make this sometime. And Eddie is just avoiding the subject. And then he's
Mhm.
walking the kitchen, and Buck gets up and follows him right away. And I was just like, that scene definitely parallels the one from season 3, I think it is. I think it's season 3, or maybe it's season 2. I can't remember.
The kitchen scene.
Yeah.
3.
Season 3.
Yeah.
I thought it was season 3. That's what I thought.
Yeah, that's like
The what?
310 or something.
I can take you.
Yeah.
Scene. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like
season
trying to
3.
figure out which one we're talking about.
Yeah, there were so
yeah.
many. Yeah. And then this is when Buck is like, you look tired, like, and stuff. And like Buck is like wondering when Eddie is coming back, and Eddie's just like saying how he moved on and Buck should too. And I'm like, yeah, sure.
Sure, honey. Keep
Say
telling
what you
yourself that.
want. Yeah, exactly.
Well, yeah. I mean, because at this point, it's been a few months. Eddie's in this new job. Did it basically because Chris was too scared for him to be out on the job, and
Yeah.
he's trying to make a better life for his son.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not like he can sit there bemoaning his lost opportunity. It's like, because he's trying to be strong and act like this is what he wants.
Right.
Right.
But on
yeah.
the other hand, it's not what he wants, and you can tell it's not what he wants.
Yeah. I also
Literally, as
think
they're
he was-
showing the loop, they're showing how he looks more and more defeated.
Right.
And that hit me in the feels.
Also, like, I think like this comes up later, but like it's not just Eddie that's struggling, or it's not just Chris that's struggling. Eddie's
Right.
struggling. We saw that long before any of this Chris stuff ever came up.
Right.
But yeah. And getting shot again, definitely tough.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, so then we move on to Jonah back another day, and Hen is not very happy about that. And this is like, meanwhile, both Hen and Buck are like fighting to talk to Bobby. It's like, Dad, I have something to say, Dad. It's like
Yeah,
the kids are
I was here
fighting.
first.
Yeah, Hen was there first. It's like, I was here first, and Bobby's just like, I'm the captain, aren't I? It's like they kept just being like, no, I gotta go. And like Hen was wondering why Jonah is back, and Buck is asking Bobby if he knows Eddie's not coming back to the 118. And Bobby's response is, I suspected much when he asked for a transfer. And Buck is just like, Eddie and Shim are supposed to come back. Them being gone was supposed to be temporary, and Hen's like, they are coming back. And Buck is just like, well, I had dinner with Eddie last night and he seemed different. And this Bobby's like, how different? Or something like that.
Right.
Like, what do you mean different?
Yeah, and I think Bobby's trying to figure out, like, how is he different? Like, is he different better, different not so good? Like, is he dealing with the reasons he left in the first place? Yeah.
Yeah, he's literally just being protective dad right now.
All right.
I love that though.
Mm-hmm.
So like the one interesting call about this episode was definitely like the bomb in the car situation, because the family basically was driving, and then apparently there was a bomb in their car, and they get a call about it, and like they think it's a hoax, they think it's a joke, but then like that person apparently knew the names of their kids or whatever and where they lived, and I'm like, okay, that's creepy. So then like the 118 and the 146 respond to it, and they have to basically match the speed of the truck, drive next to it, so they're able to like get out of the truck. So Buck and Ravi are like get out of the truck and are like trying to get onto it, and then of course we meet Lucy for the 146. And like, I know several people are like, I don't like her the second they had sight of her. I didn't really have any reason not to like her right at first, because they just showed her and I was like, oh, maybe she's
At first, I
badass.
sort of liked her. At
Yeah,
first, I
I
sort of liked
did
her. She
too.
did some
I did
badass
too.
moves and all that.
I
was
just
like,
see her
oh,
as a female version of Buck 1.0, so that's about where I see her.
We're seeing the positive version at first.
yeah,
Mhm.
exactly.
Then later, we see the version that puts the sour taste in my mouth at the thought of her.
Yeah, it's funny because my friends, the second she comes on the screen, she's like, I don't trust her.
I don't either.
And I'm like, that's fair. That's
Considering that we've
They-
already seen a female version of Buck, Taylor, should we? Just saying.
you're right.
We've not
you're
had
right.
any reasons so far.
Good
Yeah.
point. Very good point.
The thing with that is they market her at the very beginning, they market her as a female Buck. And I'm like, if you're gonna do that, that's not really a compliment. Sorry. I love Buck now. Sometimes.
Yeah, season 1, he definitely had some growing to do.
So it depends what version of Buck she is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like,
What version of Buck are we on? Like, are we on like 2, 3.0? Is it up to like version 5 yet? Is every season a new Buck?
I feel like, yeah.
Honestly, the season should just be called Buck 5, Buck 6. Like,
they need to make an episode that's like Buck 6.0 or something.
Yeah, just to confirm where we're at.
Yeah.
But yeah, we meet her, and I have no reason at this point to be like, no, don't like.
Yeah.
And so then they basically just get the family out and like whatever. And there was an issue because like they couldn't stop the car, so they had to keep driving. But then eventually, obviously, you're gonna run out of road. And so this is when this was Linda's call. This is when Eddie like takes like over the call, sort of, as like Josh is watching. And then like he's like saying how there's probably like a pressure switch like and stuff to look around like the gas pedal, and of course there was. And so then they like get him out somehow, and then like Lucy pulls a Buck, goes back into the truck and puts like something on the pedal so like it thinks he's still driving.
I think it was like a Halligan or something.
Yeah,
that was pressed down.
And so then like they all get out and stuff. They did leave Buck dangling for a good second, and I'm just like, oh, that's great.
Let's not get him run over by a fire truck. He's already been crushed by one.
He's already been hurt enough where he could sue the department again. I hate to put that out there, but
and then like the truck crashes into some stuff, like the truck.
It was construction work.
Yeah, and Buck's like, oh, I guess it was fake because it didn't like blow up right away, and then all of a sudden like it explodes.
Yeah,
it's like talk about delayed reaction.
He says that, and then Athena starts walking a little bit forward, and then the truck explodes, and I'm just like,
jinxed it.
Yeah, honestly, I mean, I was thinking
the bomb did need to. I'm thinking that like the bomb was armed, but it had like that countdown second, like it dropped below 60 miles per hour, like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, boom. Right. I'm thinking it had that kind of thing,
right?
Or the crash jolted it, so it was a little delayed. But either way. No, you'd think it'd make it pop off sooner. Either way, everyone was clear. I was wondering, I'm like, okay, are we going to get this solved later? We do, but that's later.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, like later we find out the neighbor had planted the bomb.
Yeah, Athena shows up to a domestic disturbance it turns out to be across the street from the family that was in the truck.
Yeah.
Disgruntled neighbor.
Yeah, I don't think she even, like, obviously she didn't realize it until she saw the lady across the street moving, because obviously they didn't feel safe living there.
Right.
Because at first I kind of felt bad for the guy, because the neighbors were being like, they were like, oh, he's picking out of our garbage or something like that. It's like, who cares? You did throw it out for
you obviously didn't want it.
Right. Yeah. I kind of felt bad for him at first. I was like, what the hell? Like, who cares? So then we get Josh talking to Eddie about the call. And I love Josh, don't get me wrong. And this didn't, I mean, at first I was like, okay. But then I was just like, I get it. So, like, he was just, like, complimenting. It was, like, a half compliment and saying how it was impressive or whatever. But then he says how, like, he should have told him his concerns and stuff, and tells him how he's not a dispatcher, like, obviously. And to never hijack one of their calls again and to like act like a guest or something. And it's like, I get he's not like a trained dispatcher, but like he's also a firefighter. So like I think
See, I've seen this compared to Claudette, but I will say
same thing.
Not at all. See, yes, I hate Claudette. Okay. I still hate Claudette. I feel a little more sympathy for her nowadays, but like not quite enough to even out. But there is a difference. She was a dispatcher. So technically she did have the authority to step in on a call, even if she should not have. Eddie is not a dispatcher. Do think Josh was a little harsh, but at the same time, like, I'm not too phased on it.
Right.
But at the same time, I did feel a little bad for Eddie because did the right thing. Also, I will. That one's tricky because in my mind, you waste time going through different channels. There's literally a bomb ticking in the car. And a second, they would have taken the foot off the brake or the accelerator. So I'm just kind of like, he didn't really have the time to relay it to you. But so, like, I'm not necessarily thrilled at the scene, but I'm not actually as mad at it as I had been when we first saw it. I was more mad when we first saw it than I thought about it. I'm like,
so
yeah,
I see both ends.
I do, I think what frustrated me the most initially was he could have talked about it a little differently. As soon as he started, like, yeah, he was a little harsh.
He was a little harsh.
And him saying, like, you're a guest in this place, you know, talking to Eddie like he doesn't belong there. I'm like, Eddie's whether he's public information, he's in the building, has a right to be there. And Eddie's not just a firefighter. He was in the military. If I remember correctly, 201, him and Buck defused a grenade in a guy's leg. So Eddie knows about bombs. So yeah, it's a little life and death because it's not just somebody shooting at somebody or there's a fire. There's a bomb that could, you know, potentially kill people, and he doesn't want his team killed. So I can understand why Eddie did it. Should he have maybe said something a little more to Josh and learned the lay of the land a little more before he jumped in? Yes. But I think in the long run, Eddie did what he thought was right. And just like Buck and everybody else does, they do that. But I also think Eddie learned his lesson.
Right.
I think it wasn't so much about knowledge, because I don't think Josh was questioning the knowledge that he had. Right. It was all protocol.
Yeah.
But I will be when the first day is sometimes protocol needs to get shrugged off a little bit. Yeah. Or a gentle reminder. And my main thing about that scene was that Josh was definitely a little harsh, but Eddie definitely got the point.
Yeah, agreed.
I do like what is sad about that is I felt like it really dampened Eddie's feeling like he had done something good.
Right.
Because you can kind of see like it did hit him a little bit, but he was military. He's used to a lot worse than this.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
So,
and I feel like it just dampened like how he feels about the job. Like obviously this isn't a job he really cares about that much, but still it kind of like
I feel like he finally felt like he was kind of doing something good again. And protocol, hello. Obviously this is not protocol he's not familiar with either, so you know.
Right, yeah.
You do feel a little bad for him in this scene.
I know, I just feel bad. I'm like, poor Eddie.
It was a tough situation for sure.
This is Eddie feels.
Yes, very much so. So then we have the 118 with like some of the other new people, like Lucy at the bar. They're celebrating the call, like whatever, and they're talking, and then like you see Eddie watching them, and like the waitress is like asking if he's the firefighters, and he's like no, and then he like we don't see him leave, but we heard that he like left, and we kind of we know he left.
Well, we see him turn away and walk away, but we don't see him leave like the bar necessarily. But you know he's leaving. And like it's obvious, like the shots, they tell you why. It's like he doesn't feel missed because like you see Buck laughing away at something, everyone else having a great time, and he just kind of feels like excluded. Like nobody really cares if he's there or not.
Right.
And I think he probably saw Lucy and didn't really connect who she was and just realized it feels like they're moving on, so he should too. And he's not a firefighter.
He might even think that's his replacement, which
it's possible.
Not yet.
Yeah.
So like that's possible.
Yeah, this honestly reminded me when Buck went back to the 118 like in season 3 to visit or whatever. This is like when
and
Lena was there.
Oh my god.
And his name tag was covered. Remember that?
Yes.
That had some of the same vibes.
Yes, exactly. Like this reminds me of that scene almost exactly. And I'm like, oh yeah, they're really going there. And yeah, so
like you felt the vibes for Buck in that scene because it's not an easy feeling feeling like you're being placed.
Right.
Especially when you haven't moved on.
Yeah.
So like you can, even if you did think Buck was being an asshole at the time, which he was, you still felt the vibes for him. Like you still were like, oh baby. And for Eddie, it's like, baby.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think he would have had some things to say later on.
Oh yeah.
Though then again, if he was there, I don't think later on would have necessarily happened.
I agree with that. I actually very much so.
Because he would have been keeping an eye on things, and Buck would also have had someone to pay attention to other than Lucy.
Right. Oh yeah.
And with any luck, maybe Lucy would have been hitting on Eddie, and he would have just been looking at her like, "Bitch, go."
Or then she would have realized that Eddie and Buck were kind of a thing, and then just totally left him alone. Just
please.
That would have been a better storyline. Like,
yeah.
Please.
I'd even taken Buck being drunk and kissing Eddie. Just over what happened with her.
yes.
Grant, I will say though, I would not have wanted their storyline to take off with this because you got to remember Buck's still in a relationship, and I don't want the idea of Buddy tainted by.
That's true.
Because that would
That's
look
true.
bad for Buddy,
Agreed.
and it would give anti-Buddy shippers ammunition,
Yeah, that's true.
and it would not reflect very well on either of them. So.
Yeah.
But in a scenario where Taylor did not exist,
There you
dreams
go.
of that. Anyway, that would have been perfect.
Well, in my
yeah.
head, she doesn't exist. So we'll just go with
That's the
that.
thing.
Every time
My
I
head
remember that
canon
she
is
does,
she's
I
no
get
longer
so
there.
sad.
Honestly, I forget sometimes. Like when we were talking about that,
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh my god, that's perfect." Oh wait, Taylor does exist, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Anyway, to move on to the scene we all know and hate.
Buck and Buck and Lucy, of course.
Sorry.
Buck and Lucy, of course, stay at the bar. Well, like I guess everyone like leaves or whatever. I don't think they leave because Hen and Buck shared the same Uber later, but we'll get to that later.
They probably were playing a different game elsewhere or ordering more drinks or something like that. Because Buck and Lucy are playing pool.
Right. Yeah. So they keep drinking and drinking.
And drinking.
And drinking. And then
Drinking.
yeah.
We're just making them sound like alcoholics right now. Sorry.
Right.
And then she kisses him. And he doesn't stop her really. I mean, we didn't see much of it, but we got the vibe. Enough
We
to
see
know.
the initial kiss, and then we see her kiss him again. Both opportunities, especially the second one, he could have pushed her away.
Uh-huh.
I have a lot. Shall I say all my thoughts now?
Sure.
Okay.
Before it.
No. Here's my thing. Before we even get to the kiss, Lucy is clearly hitting on Buck. Buck is trying to avoid it without saying that he has a girlfriend. Now, in my mind, he should have just straight out said he had a girlfriend. But he, even without that, he is sending off very clear, uncomfortable signals that he's not wanting this. He's not directly saying no, but sometimes people aren't comfortable directly saying no. So I'm giving him a little bit of a benefit of the doubt just in this part, just because I would also be this way. I would try and send off signals that I don't want this, but I would have trouble saying no because A, what if I'm misinterpreting? B, oh, it's going to cause a scene.
Right.
So I feel like that's where Buck was.
Yeah.
But like he's trying to fend off the idea of taking an Uber together, going back to each other. Like he's trying. Anyone in the next galaxy should have been able to see that he did not want this, and she's pushing it.
Yeah.
So I have a severe issue with that. And then she kisses him,
Yeah.
and I do put this on her because she is the one who ignored the signals he was putting off and kissed him. But he should have pushed her away. He was definitely drunk, and drinking can change things, but it still does not change that he should have pushed her away. And this is the time where they completely destroyed any hopes I had for Lucy and made her into a character that I dislike.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
it was also like the fact that before like she was announced and before we knew like very little details, everyone wanted her to be queer and everyone thought that they were okay. I don't think anybody truly 100% thought they're gonna go that way because we're talking about 911 and they don't do as good of a job with that. Like the characters they do have like that are like queer, they don't really do a good job with that. So I don't really
No.
expectations low.
Everyone
Mhm.
wanted it, but nobody actually had a sign it was going to happen. Everyone just wanted
Exactly.
it. And I think a lot of it was because we didn't want this scenario.
I think
Probably.
I think one of the things that bothered me, especially in the bar scene, was honestly the way she was acting. She was being very pushy, and
Mhm.
Buck was inebriated enough to where he wasn't altogether there. And I think she took advantage of him in a way that
In a way, yeah.
it's often not seen as women can do that to men. It's usually seen the
But
other
they
way.
do.
But
They
Right.
do.
so, and I feel like she took advantage of him being kind of drunk, and he wasn't really thinking clearly. I know he was still like talking and like kind of with it, but he was not in his right mind. And
He wasn't.
I
like
that's what
why I was
really
cringe-
bothered me.
That's why I was cringing like when she was even trying to get him to like go back to someone's place or something. Because I'm like, you are under the influence. Consent is not consent unless you are sober enough to know you are giving it.
Exactly.
And sober enough means sober.
Yeah.
Unless it is pre-agreed upon consent, like, hey, we're gonna go out and get drunk, then we're going back to my place.
Yeah. Exactly.
That's the kind of a pre-agreed upon consent,
Right.
okay?
Right. And that was
But-
not happening.
That was not happening. So obviously he's not flat on the floor, but he is definitely inebriated. She is also inebriated, but I feel like he was more. Even though
Oh yes.
technically we see her drinking more than we see him drinking. But it still
Uh-huh.
seems like that could also be different metabolism rates.
Yep. She's holds
Right.
her
'Cause that's
liquor better
another
than
thing.
he does. It's just totally
Exactly.
possible. Which again is if she's in a more of a right state of mind, then she should have been watching what she was doing. But instead she comes on to Buck and then goes through with kissing him. And here he's like struggling to try and figure out what to do because he's got a girlfriend. He hadn't said anything. I don't know.
I will
Maybe
say that. Sorry, I completely interrupted.
no, it's okay.
You hear this. You hear this in the most basic driver's ed. Okay, your faculties are slowed when you are under the influence. You cannot process the same rate of speed that you can when you're sober. So it probably took him until the second kiss to even realize he was being kissed.
Right. Didn't
Right.
he kiss her back though?
He
Yeah.
did. Second
Not-
kiss.
I don't say that in though, but I mean, there was more than just one kiss happened.
Like
Yeah.
there was more than just one kiss. He did technically kiss her back.
But again,
So
he was
this is not-
inebriated.
Yeah.
He may have even forgotten he had a girlfriend afterwards. Honestly, like
I would.
this is not. This is see, we try, and then they remind us. Like this is not me saying Buck had no fault, but this is me saying that in my mind she had more fault than he did. Because I'll be honest, at this point it started when I was getting predator vibes off of her, which
yeah.
okay, a lot of people, when you say predator in a human sense, you think of someone going after kids. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about actual animalistic predator, where they set their eye on the prey and they're going to go after them and nothing's standing in their way. I was getting an animalistic predatory vibe off of her, and that made me uncomfortable.
Right.
This whole scene made me uncomfortable. The second she kisses him, I'm like, I really don't care like about Taylor. I really don't, but she doesn't deserve to be cheated on.
Nobody does.
Nobody does. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's just like, oh,
And
why?
I have two other issues with this. One is that Buck is not a cheater.
Right.
We know this because he wasn't even moving on from Abby when Abby was clearly moved on from him.
Right.
Okay, he was being loyal to her, and I feel like I get the sense that he's probably been cheated on in the past,
Oh yeah.
excluding Abby. Okay,
Oh,
because
yeah.
I don't even know if that even counts. But I feel like at some point in time, college feeling, high school feeling, something along those lines, he was cheated on. I just get that sense.
I do, yeah, I kind of do too.
So like he's not a cheater, and so I hate that. Second thing I hate is that they did exactly what I knew they were going to do the second they brought in a female character. Because 911 is great, Lone Star is great, but especially with 911, when you bring in female characters, they're somehow going to be linked with male characters, unless they explicitly put them as queer, so hen. But they're not bringing in really new LGBTQ characters. They're kind of just sticking with their old cast, which there's nothing wrong with them.
Yeah.
But they're not bringing in new ones. So the second they announced that a new girl is coming in, I think you guys even remember because I ranted this to you guys. I'm like, they're going to do this somehow, and I'm going to be so pissed if they do. And then people were talking about, oh, she's going to be queer, and I'm like, oh, please, I want this. And the second they did that, I'm like, fuck you, 911.
What? The writers are on some drugs because everything like they're doing doesn't make any sense, especially of like this sort of storyline. Like, what are you smoking? Because this is no.
Yeah.
We don't want it. Flush it down the toilet.
Yeah. Well, I mean, justifiably, we only have seen her in one episode, so we don't necessarily know if she's straight. She could be bisexual. She could identify in a different way. So I'm saving that judgment for later episodes.
And then I wouldn't be surprised if she is bisexual or something along those lines. Like I haven't gotten the vibes that she's not, but she's clearly bucksexual.
So is Eddie, but
so is Eddie.
But the writers like to deny that.
Yeah, I know.
They like to pretend that they're just friends. Yep. They're just friends. He just really
friends,
cares
huh?
about his son.
As he clearly stares at Buck's ass on some occasions.
No, yeah, you noticed that too.
Yeah. Anyhow,
moving on.
We'll have plenty of time to talk about this in following scenes. But for all you listeners, you all know where we stand on this. We're not happy.
Yeah.
We are anything but happy.
Yes.
Exactly.
The only thing we're happy with is editing. Anyway, that I'm speaking for myself. But
did anybody laugh in the next scene after the kissing thing where Buck's like sitting in the Uber and he's like, well, should I have them drop you or me off first? And I'm like, oh my God, are they really? And then he pans out and it's Hen. And I was like, oh, thank God. Thank God it's Hen.
For a second, I was like, oh no, is it? And I was like, Hen, Hen, my baby, I love you.
And then like Hen talking some sense into him was awesome.
Except for the fact where so Buck tells her about Lucy and how she just kept ordering drinks and she kissed him. And Hen's like, oh, that's fine, and you didn't kiss her. And he's like, well, and Buck asks like what he should do, and she says like, don't tell Taylor. And then she's like, but then she's like, no, you gotta tell her. Like, she thinks about it. And I'm like, Hen, he should not be taking advice from you.
Well, she said because you're a terrible liar is what she told him.
Yeah, it wasn't because that's the right thing to do. Or like Taylor doesn't deserve that. Like, we all hate her, but like nobody deserves that.
See, I actually feel like Taylor's probably the best person you can talk to when this comes to this, because she's already been down the route that this mistake takes you. Except she made it for a bigger mistake than this, because this is a kiss, not sex. She had sex with her ex who just got out of prison. That's different than a kiss in a bar, even if it is still a form of infidelity. So I actually feel like Hen is the best person you can talk to, because she has been this. She still recovered her relationship. Not that we want Beck and Taylor to recover their relationship, but still. So that's just my personal opinion on it. But I also see what you're saying by saying she's not. But like, I don't know. Like, this is not a secret you can keep, but at the same time, this is the worst possible thing to try and talk to someone about, because.
Well, and they chat about this a little bit later. I think Hen was just trying to lean on the fact that, well, you'll probably never see Lucy again. So, you know, and I know they talk about it, which, you know, open mouth, insert foot, and then look what happens.
Jinx.
Yeah, there you go. We've covered this. We know what happens.
It's not even the Q word, yet they still somehow manage. No, I would like to refer back to something in our previous conversation on the last scene, where EJ, you were talking about like she was taking advantage of him in a way. I feel like Buck saying that like she just kept ordering drinks and stuff. I feel like this even reinforces that because I'm getting a vibe like she's trying to get him drunk or trying to get them
Honestly?
both drunk. And I
Probably.
never thought about this till now, but
Right. Well, and I guess where I was coming with that too was thinking that if there's the comment that she's a female Buck, okay, we're joking about which version of Buck are we. So if she's season 1 Buck, then her MO would be sleeping around with everybody. So she gets a little enjoyment out of it, has some fun, and then she is gone to the next guy. But also,
and I clearly picture her as someone who would steal the fire truck to go have sex.
Yeah. And I just think, I know that there is many women in the firefighting field who often struggle. And, there's the snide comments that people make to them about, oh, you just got your job because you slept with so-and-so. So I can't believe she would do something like that as a woman in a very male-dominated, career.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to see as we move forward in other episodes, what they're going to do with Lucy.
Like anyone can sleep with who they want, whoever they want, like just be safe, that kind of thing. But also this comes down to consent.
Yep.
And this comes to clearly, even if she did not mean to do this, she was clearly trying to bypass the basic rules of consent here.
Right.
So yeah, that just brought me back to what you said, and I never really caught this part. Then I was like, oh, that makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah.
At least it was just a
bit
kiss.
of
That's
an-
all I keep thinking.
Yeah.
At least it was just a kiss.
I do have one question though. We know that Bobby had left, and we never saw Ravi specifically. He did mention he came later, but where was Hen when all this was happening?
I'm thinking she was getting a drink or playing a game or messing with the Monday because he was there or something.
Ignoring him because she doesn't want to get to know him.
Probably hiding from him in the bathroom. No, she's not the kind of person who'd hide from anybody.
No.
She would confront them. But no, I feel like I've never been in this situation in a bar, but I have been with like groups where you just kind of spread out and you might not find your group for hours.
Yeah, that's true.
So I feel like this might be one of those.
What happened at a bar?
Yeah, I feel like that's just one of those old cliches almost like that happens.
Oh yeah, it definitely happens.
So yeah, but still, like I get what you're saying. I'm just kind of like, did no one see this?
Oh yes.
So I'm sure people did, but probably not people who'd understand what was actually happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyhow, so Uber, that happened. I'm kind of glad we got this scene.
Yeah. Except for like, I mean, I get it.
By this scene, I'm Uber, not the rest of it.
Yeah. I just didn't love like, had me like, not
I
even.
get you.
Yeah, it's just like
me too.
No. But I guess slightly better stuff. Chris and Eddie. Eddie's awake like in the middle of the night, just sitting there, and Chris gets up and is like, "Why are you up?" And Eddie's just like saying like how the shift changed, like he's not used to like not being up for like a 24-hour shift or something, and like stuff. And Chris is just like, you miss being a firefighter. And Eddie's just like saying like, oh yeah, but it was scary for you. Like you said it was scary. And Chris says how he can be brave. I'm like, oh.
Yeah, he says, yeah, that was really cute. But like also super encouraging for Eddie, because I think Eddie's realized like, because Eddie did the job change for Chris. So then for him to see that Chris can see his dad's unhappy, and for him to say that, it's a big step for Chris.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
At least somebody's therapy is working well.
Somebody. Oh my god.
Eddie's getting there.
He's getting there, I will admit.
He
is getting there.
Like this reinforces what I was saying though. At some point in time, Chris had to be the one to give him the okay.
Yes.
Because Eddie would not go back to firefighting as long as he thought Chris was going to be unhappy with it. Because he is self-sacrificial and would absolutely, completely give up his happiness for his son. We have seen this multiple times. Part of the reason my boy needs therapy. But yeah, I'm so happy we got this because this is exactly what I was saying.
Right. Yeah. And I had been waiting for something like this because, like, we all kind of felt like something like this would come up. Like, there's be like, because we all like kind of knew after we saw like Ryan like behind the scenes, like in the firefighter uniform, we all knew, okay, like maybe it's coming off. So it was kind of like we know.
Yeah. It's like at this point we know he's gonna come back. We just don't know when and how.
Exactly. But I love them.
Yeah.
And this is when Eddie has that conversation with Bobby, which so Eddie like goes to Bobby's house and was like saying like, oh, he wants transferred back to the 118 and he has like the paperwork and everything, and Bobby asks him what's going on. Eddie says how he made a mistake and he's ready to come home, and Bobby is wondering like what changed, and Eddie says Chris was struggling. Bobby makes the good point that like he's not the only one that was struggling. And Bobby asks him like if he's sleeping at all because he does not look good.
Right.
And Bobby says that he needs to wait a little longer, and he's not saying never, but he's saying he needs to talk to someone and work on that before he's gonna come back. And Eddie says that he doesn't need a mental health check, he just needs his job back. And Eddie says like, oh, I'll just go to another house then. And Bobby says, you better hope they don't call me for a recommendation. And this is what Eddie says.
Okay, that's where it should have ended. And then Eddie makes the idiotic statement
of so this is Eddie says that thing he shouldn't have said, where he says, you know what, when the brass was coming for you, when they were trying to fire you, I had your back, I supported you, and now you're trying to turn on me. Oh, that wasn't even the bad part of it. The bad part.
No, this is part 1. Part 2's coming.
Okay, so then Bobby says that that's not what's going on. He's just trying to look out for him. This is what Eddie says, the dumb thing, when he's like, you're gonna stand there with 100-something bodies on you and tell me I'm not fit for duty? Go to hell, Bobby. Bobby's face when he said that, and I'm just like, Eddie, I understand your frustrations, but that's not the move. That's not the right move.
When you're hurt, you lash out. And so like I get why Eddie did this, but at the same time it was not okay. Like you don't say that. Yes, I get why he said it, because he was lashing out. He was hurt. And he also felt cornered because how many times has he tried to avoid mental health checks? Too many to be healthy. Exactly. Too many to be healthy. But he way crossed the line with this. And so I'm hoping we get some Bobby Eddie makeup.
I hope
like kind
Eddie
of get a good discussion. Please, because
when Chim punched Buck, I know we're not getting an apology for that. That was just kind of said that something like they kind of worked on things behind the scenes and that happened already, just not on screen. We're not getting it. But this, we need an apology for.
I think we will. I think that'll be part of Eddie's therapy even. Because I think he's going to go home, he's going to cool off, and he's going to he'll actually probably get in his car and be like, the fuck did I just say? But he might not be able to process it until he gets home and can actually cool down and be like, oh no, I screwed up. But he's also someone very proud, so I can't see him apologizing immediately because he's still going to be butthurt about everything. So it's hard to apologize when you're hurt.
Oh yeah, I know that. Like, I've definitely had those moments.
I am fully guilty of that.
I'm guilty of that too. Like, I've definitely done that in my past where I've said things even now I say things I probably shouldn't. I'm like, oh, oops. Yeah, I probably
but when you're hurt, you find a way to rationalize them. You move past your hurt and you're like, oh, crap.
Right. Yeah, it's a slippery slope, and I think we know what in the show, we know what Bobby has gone through to get himself into a safe and healthy mindset after all that he went through in his past. So does the crew.
And he hasn't really had this flung back at him since season 2.
So you don't, when you're going through it, it's not the time to start throwing other people through the mud just to get yourself a point across. So Eddie was definitely in the wrong here.
Absolutely.
Now, but on the other hand, Bobby has to think about, okay, Bobby is a captain. He's not just a firefighter. He's a captain. Mm-hmm. He has a responsibility to the city of Los Angeles and the fire department and everyone that works in that firehouse. If one of his guys or gals is not in the right mindset to be working, he has to make that call, and he has to give them some tough love. He can't be everybody's best friend. And so he has a right to do that. And I know there's a lot of people mad at Bobby for not letting Eddie come back to the 118, but Eddie hasn't worked out his stuff yet. He's just been guiding along, and he's not really working on it. Coming back to work is not going to fix everything.
Right.
Exactly. And I am going to completely take a moment and tell some fans to shut the fuck up. Yeah. Because there have been a lot of fans who have been smashing Bobby, weaponizing what happened with Buck and paralyzing it to what happened with Eddie. And I'm going to tell you to shut the fuck up. And here is why you should shut up. Literally, what EJ just said. He has a responsibility to the city of Los Angeles, to the 118, and to his team to protect them. You cannot bypass these responsibilities for one person. With Buck, I will bring up one of my old points we're going to revisit when we were talking about the lawsuit episode and the rant that I had around that time. What would y'all have thought if what happened at Buck's celebration, him coming back, what would you all have done if he had that embolism while on a call and he dropped a fellow firefighter down a cliff because he collapsed? If Bobby had ignored those signs and let Buck come back and he had that happen, that would be on Bobby as much as it would be on Buck, but even more on Bobby, because Buck cannot control what his body does. But Bobby had the responsibility to keep his team safe. He was fully justified keeping Buck off the team until he was more healed. Just as he is justified in keeping Eddie off the team until he has conquered his mental demons. Or at least gotten on the path to it.
Right.
When
he doesn't have to be perfect. He just has to agree that he has some problems to get help.
He needs to get help and acknowledge he has issues. Because we all have issues. Every single one of you listening to this, every single person who is hosting this podcast, we have issues. The actors have issues. The characters have issues. We are screwed up. Welcome to humanity.
Right.
It's not a great stay, but we're all stuck here.
Right.
Anyone who has struggled with any kind of mental health issues knows that when you are not at your best, everything suffers. Your work suffers, your mood suffers, your relationships suffer. When you are not at your best, everything is not at your best. When you are military, police, firefighter, or any other kind of job where other people's lives rely on you to be at your best, you cannot afford to go in at the stage Eddie is in right now, which is spiraling, but trying not to spiral and trying to fake you're not spiraling. You put everyone at risk. And so Bobby is fully justified. So stop hating on him and maybe put yourself into his shoes and try to imagine having at the very minimum 6, but more likely closer to 18 people on one shift, depending on you, not to mention the city of Los Angeles and the 118's jurisdiction. And maybe you'll start to understand. And as a future firefighter, this pisses me off to see people just not understand the gravity of the situation. I will stop ranting now, but I hope everyone gets the point.
Well said.
Yeah. And I can understand. And even back when we talked about, Buck getting the sick and the embolism and all that, Bobby, again, had justified reasons. As his friend, he wanted to do everything he could for him. Unfortunately, sometimes that involves tough love
and maybe not doing exactly what that person wants to help them get better. And in Eddie's case, he wants to come back to 2018. I also think, and this might not be how they're going to bring it up, but like, I feel like Eddie's been a little wishy-washy the last half seasons. Like, one minute he wants to be a firefighter, the next minute it's oh, I'm going to do what Chris wants. Then it's like, oh, I don't care what Chris wants. It's like, he needs to make a decision and stick with it and own up to whatever decision he makes.
I don't think at any point he's like, oh, I don't care what Chris wants, but like, he's really battling like how to even that out. And that's
right.
When you have spent your entire life going from what you want to what everyone else wants, and just you never learn the balance. Right. The more ingrained in the habits you get, the harder it is to switch out those habits. And so, yeah, Eddie has been struggling.
Yeah.
But Bobby was fully justified. So people stop and think.
And I think things will be addressed in the next few episodes. Because, you know, it was weird because we had, you know, all this happen in 11, and then, you know, 12 it was literally focused on Chim and Maddie, which was totally understandable. But, you know, so it's been a few episodes. So I'm sure the next couple of episodes after this, we'll get some of this stuff addressed.
Right. I think 13 might be when the mental like breakdown happens. And I think 14 might be when he like goes back to therapy and stuff. I think I might have read that somewhere.
Yeah, I haven't seen the synopsis floating around yet.
Yeah, I think it's out there. I just can't remember. I read it like maybe a couple weeks ago. And stuff.
Well, you know, I haven't read it.
Of course not.
Right. But I do fully believe that Eddie does need to apologize to Bobby for bringing up what he did, because that has no right. Like that's in Bobby's past and something he's worked through and worked very hard to work through.
And I will say, I don't think he's going to spiral or anything because of this. I feel like he's steady enough, but I think it will be wounding words, and especially from someone he cares about as much as he cares about Eddie. Right. So yes, please, 911, do not disappoint us. Do not fail us on this.
Which, you know, which I think is what leads to the last scene in the episode, you know, is when Bobby makes those announcements, because he makes some tough decisions.
Right. Yeah. We'll get there. So this scene I don't really care about, but we're going to talk about it anyways, because it has to do with Buck and the whole story. So Buck, you idiot, because he intends on telling Taylor about, you know, the whole kiss with Lucy. Don't you know he asked her to move in? I'm like, you dumbass. Who does that? He
was so nervous and he freaks out. And then what's he do? He asks her to move in. Totally opposite.
Literally the worst thing.
I'm like, you dumbass. Like, who does that? And then, like, of course, Hen finds out about it because he tells her. And I was just like, what the heck is wrong with you? So yeah, Bobby has announcements to make. So, and this is when like Hannah and Buck are like saying, like talking about the whole situation. And Buck's like, well, I won't have to see her again. So, Jonah's the new medic. And then, they have somebody else joining them. And of course, Lucy is joining them in 118. And it's like, well, Buck's face is like, oh shit. Because he was just saying that like, oh, I won't have to see her again, Jinx.
Yep, he jinxed himself.
He really just did.
And the look on her face when she came in, that smug face, I'll be honest, I wanted to punch it off her face.
Same. Yeah.
I was so pissed. I knew it was going to happen. We all knew it was going to happen.
Yeah.
But I was so pissed.
See, we know Jonah is going to be gone real quick, but Lucy, we don't know how long she'll be sticking around for.
Can I see Eddie personally kick her out the door?
That'd be nice.
Well, we would have wanted to see Buck kick Lena out the door, so...
What? I do not hate Lena anywhere near.
I just realized something. Lena's last name starts with a D. So what if she has the tape on, or Eddie has the tape on his locker with the Donovan covering the Diaz? Oh, I don't want another parallel, but I just thought of that.
Why should
oh my god!
Because you know they would do that.
So we had Lena Bosco, which was taking the place of Evan Buckley, and then now we've got Lucy Donovan taking over for Eddie Diaz. Oh my god. Okay.
It's like slightly
We're all
annoying that they might
fine.
do that. Yeah, we
They
are.
would.
Exactly. That's exactly
Like
what
I
was.
totally just thought of that. I was like, oh
Oh
man.
no. Okay, so episode 12. This episode is a lot heavier.
Yep.
Trigger warning for this episode. It deals like lot of mental health stuff, depression, suicide. Definitely not the right episode if that's triggering. But
Like, go ahead and turn it off now. We love you guys. Don't put yourself through this.
exactly.
And go back to another episode and listen to our social media because we totally want you to follow us. Anyway, that's beside the point.
Yes, yes. So we see flashbacks with Maddie, where we last saw her, which is obviously during the blackout, bathing, and then like the bathing G thing when she slips in the tub, her at the hospital, her recording the video. We almost saw like her point of view this time. And then her dropping G off the station, which we didn't see yet, her handing her off to Robbie. We kind of hear like the whole voiceover of the that was in the video is kind of playing over this whole scene, and then Maddie walks into like the ocean water like up the coast with the intentions of drowning herself, and she like has flashbacks like we see flashbacks from her life, and I'm just like, poor Maddie.
And she's not just having flashbacks of like current events, she's having flashbacks of like
Her
past
childhood.
childhood
I
drama with the parents.
Okay, every time I see the parents, I'm like, I hate them.
Oh yeah, me too.
Like I seriously, especially the mom. Like the dad doesn't really bother me that much because he wasn't really like in the center of everything. Like the mom
Like-
just really pisses me off.
She caused the most active harm. He caused harm, but she caused the most.
Exactly. So
And honestly, I would say half of the harm he did was just sticking by her as much as he did and everything that she did.
yeah, pretty much. So then we see Maddie come up from the water, and then 3 days later, she checks herself into a hospital in Boston, and like the doctor's like asking her basically about like her whole like background and her whole dealings, and like if she's been like if she's had suicidal thoughts, and she says yes, and like in the past, like yes, for the past few months, and she has sometimes had suicidal thoughts in her past since she was in an abusive marriage, but nothing like this. And she says how she was suppressed growing up on and off early as age 9 after losing Daniel. And like her mom had talked about like wanting to die after that. And Maddie explains that like 3 days prior, she tried to drown herself in the ocean. Basically, this is just like the whole like thing they're trying to run tests. And Maddie mentioned that her mom doesn't talk about any of this because they're asking like, oh, do you ever have issues with this? And she's like, I don't know, my mom doesn't talk about this stuff. And eventually she's diagnosed with postpartum thyroiditis, which basically just feels like baby blues and like that kind of stuff. And then
It's not just a typical postpartum depression, it's a thyroid imbalance caused from pregnancy post baby.
Right, yeah. And like once that sort of gets better, you feel like you're getting better, but you're actually like kind of worse. And like she's just relieved she's getting an answer, because like you can imagine like after all this time thinking that you're never gonna get out of this, or like you're crazy or something, you're finally getting an answer.
Yeah, like honestly, I did feel Maddie in this hospital sequence. I had not been in her position at all. But when she talked about her mom wanting to die after losing Daniel, when I was about 13, my mother would talk about jumping off the roof of the barn.
Wow.
And she would do the same with the house. And I am very deeply scarred from that. And so I'm picturing Maddie being in my exact position, hearing her mom talk about this. It's scarring for a child to hear this, and it will impact them negatively to hear this, especially at an age where they won't understand that you may not mean it, or that you're saying it as a method of coping. They're just going to think, oh, my parents about to kill themselves. So like I can deeply relate to how she must have felt as a kid hearing this, because I had to deal with that and I'm still traumatized.
Right. Yeah.
So like, just that was very deep, but that is my own experience with that. And I'm saying that simply to say I can relate. Because yeah, she's clearly still feeling the effects there.
Yeah, definitely. And then eventually she's released and kind of put through like an outpatient program at the women's center. And so she gets an apartment and stuff, and like she just pays for like the 6 months. And stuff, and she like goes to like the outpatient group, and Maddie meets lots of women there. The one that's like I feel like the most like influential for Maddie is Kira, who is JJ in Criminal Minds. I never watched
I was sitting there and I'm like, I know her. What do I know her from? And you only knew because you had seen people talking about this online, but you were like,
yeah, I've never watched Criminal Minds.
Okay, I've seen episodes of Criminal Minds.
JJ!
Yeah, I've seen
JJ
quite a few episodes of Criminal Minds, but I've never watched them in order. I actually want to do that. I just haven't done it yet. It is on my list. But like everyone had been talking about this, so like, oh my god, it's a reunion, and I was like, oh, okay.
I love it so much, which is funny because Maddie or Jennifer Love Hewitt did play a character on Criminal Minds.
Right, yes.
Definitely season 10, I think, but I think she played 11 or something like that.
Oh, cool. I didn't know that.
Character on Criminal Minds. And they did definitely interact at points, including the character JJ giving Jennifer Love Hewitt's character like advice with pregnancy, which I think is a little ironic considering the part that they're in here. So I love it. I only just remembered, oh my god, they actually acted together in Criminal Minds.
Right, yeah.
That's awesome.
That made me happy. Anyway, beside the point, I was so happy to see her.
Yes. And then Maddie's like at the apartment later on, and she sees the video of Chi crawling, and I'm like, oh. And like it's like that's gotta be like so hard for her seeing all this. She's like, you know, like she's trying to get better, and then she's also seeing like G, and it's like, oh, but I'm not there. And like even Maddie has a conversation that we saw with Buck from Buck's point of view, where it's like why is Chimney in Utah? Yeah. And Buck's like, he's trying to look for you, and that's when like Buck hears like the church bells and stuff.
Yeah, the Old North Church.
Yeah. I love that we're actually getting flashbacks to points that we've gotten in the other episodes during the earlier part of the season. And we're like, okay, this was happening during this episode, this was happening during that episode. So like, okay, yes.
So good.
Well, and even I was able to kind of watch it, and I can see some of these scenes were filmed before she went out on maternity leave. You can kind of tell when you look at her which parts she was still semi-pregnant because she was wearing the loose, baggy clothes.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
As in Jennifer was pregnant.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Definitely. So then we see Maddie and Kira talk, and Maddie says like how she isn't ready to go home, and how she says like how she thinks Chim hates her for like G-slipping the bathtub, and like then we hear about like why Kira's there, and like how like she was driving drunk with her kid in the car, and she was like self-medicating. Maddie's like, oh yeah, well you're self-medicating, and like Maddie says like she wants to get better for her, and she and Kira kind of like make a pact so they can get better and go home in a sense. And I'm like, I like this. And of course we see Chim on the road to Boston, and again, Chim's point of view, we only really saw like pieces of this in 5A when Hen was talking to him, and Buck is like convinced.
You mean the one if by land, two if by sea church?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
And Buck is like convinced about like the North Church bells, which
the Old North Church.
He's right, because there's like multiple like chapters, I guess, of this church.
Yeah, there's replicas in different cities.
Right. So like it could literally be anyone, which is what I think like him and Hen were saying or something like that. Like, are you sure? And when Chim's like talking, he's also talking to Albert, who is in his apartment, and he has a mustache, and we're all like, what the hell? But like, I knew it was for like the Nancy Drew show he's doing, that's why he had it, because I've seen like the pictures and stuff.
The mustache is terrible.
It is
should
terrible.
shave it now.
Yeah, it's gotta go. It's gotta go.
That show is right.
I don't
please let it be gone soon.
I don't like mustaches generally. That's not my thing.
Same.
And this is a reason I don't like mustache. Literally,
terrible.
all he is proving my point. Yes, it looks like a big fuzzy caterpillar just decided to rest on top of his upper lip.
Right.
Actually, a nest of fuzzy caterpillars nest on his upper lip. It looks terrible. Shame.
It does. Yeah, and like Albert says something like, "Oh, you should probably cancel the diaper subscription. Like, I'm running out of room."
Oh yeah, because there's boxes stacked up all over. And then Chim says something like, "Oh, that's where they've been. That's where they went."
Yeah, and that's exactly. And then Albert's like asking what he's gonna say, and of course, this is where Eli comes in, and I'm like, I love him.
I love Eli.
I love Eli.
Oh, same. Love him. And like, this is Chim's also talking to Athena and saying like, oh, like talking about Maddie and like how she's missing, and Athena's like, well, like there's a missing persons, but like we can't like they don't really have proof that she's there. And this is when Chim's like mentioning the Commonwealth, and
oh yeah,
and Buck's just like saying
state versus Commonwealth.
Yeah, so this is when Buck is like talking about the church fathers, and like Chim's line is just like, oh, but Commonwealth, and I think it's just like, huh? And Chim's just like, well, apparently they care about that here.
yeah.
And we kind of like, through all this, we not only do we see how Maddie's dealing, we also see how Chim's dealing, because he's obviously like with G by himself, and we see him put the missing persons poster up in like one of the hospitals, and he like talks to the nurse, which I'm sure he does every day. Because she kind of had that feeling like, oh, he's back, like kind of thing.
Yeah, I got that vibe too. And I know even he's seeing, all these firsts with G, that he knows Maddie's missing too.
Right. Yeah. And
the first year has so much.
Yeah.
Right.
And no. So like, part of me, I get why they have the posters, and I get why they're missing, like why he's looking for her. But she already clearly established a basis of, I'm leaving on my own violation. I'm not being coerced, like in her video. And so I'm like, can they technically put her as missing when she clearly knows where she's going?
No, because she said every right thing to prove that she's not, and she didn't take off with G. If she'd have taken off with G, then there could be other things. But by her just going by herself, she's not married to Chim. She left G in a safe place with friends, so she's not technically missing. But she did disappear. She's without real true notice.
Yeah.
So he has reason to look for her, but the police are not going to be like knocking on doors every day looking for her.
He's looking for her out of a personal reason more than any concern for her. Like, yes, he's looking for her because he's concerned about her, but like, there's no evidence that there's a threat to her well-being or that something could have happened to her. She's just kind of vanished, and people kind of vanish all the time, honestly. So yeah, that was just kind of me going, I don't know if there can technically be a missing persons, because I don't think she's technically missing. Like, yes, she's gone, but she knows where she is. Like,
right. It's tricky and stuff.
Right.
But the nurse
weird lines.
Right. Yeah. And then when he like talks to the nurse, she can't say oh, she'll be at this place, but she probably goes there every day to the point where she's probably sick of seeing him. So he starts talking about the morgue. So she says, "Oh, maybe you have you ever been to the women's center? Like, maybe you should check that out. Like, they specialize in postpartum depression." So this is when Chim sits out there every day. This time he happens to be with Chi, and he catches him and is you seem like the detective on the case that gets too into the case, and Eli tells him how it's not healthy, and Chim is just one day she will walk out these doors. He thinks he's crazy. Yeah.
I love Eli though.
Oh, same.
Underappreciated character that we're finally getting more of.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
But I will side note this I really don't think that 911 is setting up for 911 Boston. I could be proved wrong, but I really don't think so.
Okay, so since this has been brought up, because we talked about this, I would much rather have a 911 Boston than a 911 Miami.
Agreed.
Okay, so I would be 100% for 911 Boston just because they could literally show Eli. They could have him be a main character. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Also, I don't know if it's ever been brought up that he was married and he has a couple kids. I'm sure they're grown by now, but still, we didn't. I feel like that
they're at least teens, I think. Mm. Yeah, no, I don't feel like they're setting up for it.
No.
But if they decided to take this, please, Miami is so overdone. Right. Y'all, what are you gonna do that's not already in Los Angeles? You have alligators that's slightly more than Los Angeles, except some parts of Los Angeles probably. I don't know. Where are where are alligators anyway?
But part of Florida, to me, that wouldn't be the part to do.
Yeah,
I just feel like you have Los Angeles and you have Miami. You have beach cities. You have some of the same. You might have slight temperature differences, but really, what are you going to have that's not already in one place? Right. Give us Boston. I want this. It's different.
I think it would be a great offset. I mean, I'm a fan of the boys from Boston, the New Kids on the Block. So I'm all for some Boston representation on TV.
And you're able to have different
that calls. Just dated me a lot more than I wanted to. Probably just
moving on. Your ageless girl. Yeah,
I know.
Yeah, it's just we'd have the cold related emergencies. We'd have something different.
Yeah,
I just feel like Miami would just be a copy of Los Angeles.
Right.
That's it. So give us if you're going to give us a third, give us Boston or something else unusual.
Yeah, but my thought is right now, I think they just need to focus on the two that are doing well. Because I feel like if they add another one,
let's make them do better than they're doing. Lone Star's doing fine.
They're not doing terrible, but yes, they need to kind of balance out the writing staff and whatever.
Lone Star's amazing. 911 still has good viewership. It still is as solid as a show, but. Mm-hmm. Their writers are on something.
That's for sure. I feel like if they were going to do a third, they would space it out because obviously 2018 is when 911 came out and then 2020 is when, Lone Star came out. So I feel like they would space it out a little bit more if they were going to actually do it. But don't do Miami. I
feel like not Miami. Please, no. That's so cliche too. The heck?
And everyone's going to be is Marjan going back to Miami?
Right. I mean, and you've already got a character established in Boston.
Exactly.
Exactly. Give us it, please.
And I would like the sound thingy on the screen instead of it being orange. I like the green.
Yeah. Although I don't think they would do that just because it's Boston. I think that was more St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah, because it was St. Patrick's Day, which I loved that part of the episode. That was.
We have so much to broach there, but yes, if you're going to give us a third 911 Boston, let's do it.
Yeah, so let's get back to the episode.
Yeah, that was a long side note.
But it's fine. This is not anything unusual. We know this.
Yes, we do. Then we see Chim as a volunteer medic. And this is when like Chim tells Bobby about like it, like how he's a volunteer medic, like he's doing this, and Chim tells Bobby like that he's like he's like Chim tells Bobby that basically he's still not coming home without Maddie, and that's like
Right. Because Bobby's
clearly
trying to say, well, if you're, being a paramedic there, you could, you have a full-time job here waiting for you.
right.
And Jim's like, nope, not coming home without Maddie.
Typical.
And by this time, it's been a few months, and he hasn't even found Maddie yet.
Right, yeah, like his savings account's getting low. Like this is, yeah, not great. So
And also babies are expensive.
Right. And the day this is St. Patrick's Day too. So that's kind of why, and I'm sure that's why Eli probably talked him into doing it, because it's, St. Patrick's Day is a very big celebration in Boston. There's a lot of things going on, and they just need all the hands they can get for help with the medical stuff. So there's a lot of drunk people.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
It's like anywhere. Like
True.
Any, like, it's not just there. It's like any place, any city, like it's big. So let me see Maddie. This is when she's like ready to go home. She says it's like at her group, and like she says how much they helped her, especially Kira, and Kira not so happy that Maddie is like getting, like, she's better and she's like in a better place, and she's just like saying how like Maddie is fixed, and like
Never use the term fixed.
Nobody.
This was bothering me this entire episode, because nobody's fixed.
Right.
You're just better.
You've worked. I feel like it's just like you've worked, and like you learn like coping mechanisms, skills, and stuff to get better, and like you're always working to be better. Anybody is. But like the whole tone of this whole thing is off. She's drunk, and you can tell, which Maddie obviously figures out very quickly after like they're done with the group. And like this is also like Kira has like apparently a visit with her son later that day, so Maddie brings her to the hospital to steal a banana bag. But when she goes to like find one or whatever to like go steal it, Kira finds the poster that Jim had put up in the hospital, the missing persons poster, and she's like, oh, he must still been looking for him. And Kira like thought they were both in the same boat where their exes hated. She's just like, oh, I thought he hated you. And she says like how it wasn't safe for her, was she? And Kira of course runs off, and it's St. Patrick's Day of all time, so like it's packed, it's lots of drunk people, lots of people on the streets, and Maddie and Shim are literally in the same places at the same times, but just dodging each other. It's like, yep, that would happen. And so eventually, like in the episode, Maddie like goes to like find Kira, but then she gets like a call from a bartender saying like her friend needs help, and so like Maddie gets there, and it's like, oh, she needs an ambulance. So of course they find one down the block.
Finally,
Eli and Chip. That's who it is. And so like Eli sees her first, but like he doesn't realize that like this is Maddie, like Jim's Maddie, and stuff, until like they see each other, and they're just like, the way like this whole thing unravels, like Maddie, like Jim sees her and is like, Maddie, and she's like, Howie, and I'm just like, oh. And like he like asks if she's okay, and she's like, yeah. And then like they get to the hospital, and like Eli talks to Maddie first, which I really actually like, because Eli is telling Maddie about like Kira, and like he kind of introduces himself, and she's like, yeah, I've heard a lot about you. And he was like, yeah, same. Eli makes the point of like, you and that little girl are about all he talks about these days. And Maddie asks like where he is, and Eli's like, probably outside. And she like wonders how he is, and Eli's like, he was a mess at first, but even though Maddie left, like he feels like he's the one that's responsible. So then we get the the talk we had all been like knowing's coming, waiting for all these months of like not getting into this. Like Maddie didn't think she could ever go back, and Jim said like what happened in the bathtub was an accident, and this is when Maddie said like she tried to kill herself, and this is like Jim being shocked, being like what, and Maddie explained that like once she dropped off G, she knew she was safe, and she drove out the coast and walked into the ocean, and like she was like she had like her head full of all the mistakes she made, and she just thought that like everyone would be better without her. And Maddie said how it was sad at first, but that would fade and G wouldn't remember her because she's so young. And Jim asked like how could you ever think that, and Jim says that if she died like he would have like never forgiven himself or something. And Maddie finishes the sentence with like because she kind of like he kind of says if like she would die he would, and she's like never forgive yourself, and she's like yeah I got out of the ocean for you, like both of you. And she like was in Boston because she had to learn to stop running, and Jim said that he would do anything, and he beats himself up every day for not doing more. And Maddie says she's sorry for putting him like through that, and they both kind of like agree to like not like hide anything or like always tell the truth, and like to say how they feel and what they like address what they want, which yeah that would be good.
It was good to have that conversation finally, because I feel like some part of Jim had thought I'll find Maddie and everything will be fine again.
Right.
And I think he had to realize Maddie had her own journey while she was gone. And I think he finally realized that she actually had to leave and why she had to leave. And I hate to say this because I feel like it's going to sound like I don't want it to sound, but I think it finally became a broader picture than just him, because he was thinking about her. He was thinking about G, but he was also thinking very himself too. Like as soon as he finds her, makes up for whatever he did or something, like it go fine. And it was a Maddie's journey. I don't know if I explained that well, because I didn't want it to sound like he's self-centered or ignorant of her. Yeah, okay, good, because that's not what I'm saying.
Yeah, like,
but I think he grasped the gravity of the situation finally.
Yeah,
I'd say it didn't hurt. It did. I've definitely had people tell me they've tried to kill themselves before, and it hurts every single time you hear about it.
Yeah,
and you feel more appreciative when the person's still there.
Exactly. Like personally, like just in my family and just like my own personal struggles, like I get where Maddie's coming from, and I've also had like family members go through this, so it's like it's very like I feel it very much. So yeah.
And I mean it hit me hard because I lost a friend to suicide just around the time this episode aired, so this was heavy.
Yeah, it's hard. Yeah.
But I mean, and I think it's easy for us when we're on the other side to see, like, we focus on what we can focus on because we don't know the other stuff. Like for Chim, he was focusing a lot on what he could do, which was look for Maddie, take care of G, find Maddie. But he wasn't really realizing what she was struggling with and going through on the other side, on Maddie's side.
Right.
Put it in perspective for him.
I think he realized she was struggling. But I think he thought that he could help. And really, in reality, he couldn't. Because that was something she had to do for herself. And honestly, we did see this a little bit. And I've had this happen. People are well-meaning. They try so hard to help you. But sometimes them trying to help you just makes things worse because you feel more pressured. Or you might feel like people are being overbearing. Or it's very easy for me to feel like people are being overbearing. I'll just be very honest. So, like, I would definitely say that from my own experience. So yeah, like he definitely had the mindset of, oh, I can fix things. And I think he realized fixing was not in his power.
Yeah, and I think the topic of him being a fixer comes up later. And it's true, like he is definitely fixer. Like he just
And I
wants
feel
to
like that
fix everyone's
comes.
problems.
I
Yeah.
feel like that comes with being a first responder too, because you're
Mhm.
used to being called to help people, and yeah, you
Right.
lose people, but you're used to being able to help in some capacity. And so when you have a situation where you can't help, you don't know what to do in that case.
Right.
Right, exactly. So this is then when like it's prompted for like Tim to be like, well, what's next? And Maddie wants to see G. So we see her go see G. It's like, oh. And Maddie like sees how big she is, and like Jim's like, oh, you must want to hold her. And she's just like, she never likes strangers. And Jim's like, you're not a stranger. And like she's like, I miss so much, and she's growing up, and then she starts crying, and this is when Jim hugs her, and I'm like, okay, yep. It's not going well. I feel so bad. Like it's just like,
Right.
oh, like
Because she's right. Like, this is a child, and she left when this kid was a couple months old, a few months old. Like, kids don't remember. Not just a face.
Right.
Their memory doesn't quite go like that,
Mhm.
unless they've seen that face constantly, and we know it's been months.
Right.
So, like, yeah, this is her mother, but she has not seen her mother in many months. So, yes, she's a stranger.
Yeah.
yeah, as much as you want to say she's not a stranger, she kind of is.
She is,
Yeah.
and that's like the hard truth.
Right, exactly.
It is a hard truth. It is, you know.
Yepper.
Right. Yeah. And then Eli kind of asked Jim after like the fact, like, what's next? Like, should I like be finding you like a job like as a paramedic, or is it back to LA? And Jim said how like he didn't think it was right to ask Maddie like right then like what they were gonna do.
Yeah.
And Jim says how like he was mad at her, but he realized like what leaving cost her. And
Right.
Chimney, like this is when him being a fixer comes up,
Mhm.
and like it helps with like what Eli said. 'Cause Eli was like, yeah, you're a fixer, like you just want to fix people's problems, but like you can't always do that.
Right.
But then Maddie talks to Kira, and Maddie like wonders if she was gone too long. And Kira tells Maddie that not to miss the future milestones and to not be afraid to fight for what she wants, which I think was very important for the episode, because this could have gone like so many different ways. Like she could have easily just walked away and been like, well, she doesn't remember me, so what's the point?
Right.
Yeah. I think she finally had the courage. Not the courage, no. She had the strength to fight.
Right.
Before she just lost her strength. So honestly, yeah, I just realized it, but like my admiration for Maddie grew a lot during this episode.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I've always loved Maddie, but like I definitely seeing like this story, like this is a very important episode, and I'm glad they didn't try to break it up with other storylines, because I think if they would have done that,
it would have spoiled it.
It would have hurt the episode, honestly.
Right.
Then we end on Maddie, Chim, and G, and like Maddie, this is when Chim brings her over and they pass the park, and Chim's like, yeah, I said no. Because they were coming over here.
Right.
And that was so funny. And then Maddie's just like starts singing to her, and I'm like, oh. And then like somewhere in there, G calls Maddie Mama.
Yeah.
Because she had been saying like, oh, like I'm a stranger, and then like that happened, and Jim's like, she recognized your voice like 6 months, 6 years. They couldn't forget her. And
right. And I think that in that moment she kind of forgets, but yeah, I mean, babies recognize their mothers and fathers' voices in the womb.
Yeah, especially mothers.
Yeah,
because you're with them 24/7 for 9.5 months plus, and yeah, so she may have not physically seen Maddie, but she knows what her voice sounds like.
Right.
Yeah, so like she may not, like, obviously we hear Mama, and like it's sweet, we love it. To me, it's a a bit unrealistic that she recognized her as Mama, but like in that sense. But at the same time, like, yeah, I'm not gonna fight it. But like my brain is just like, yeah, because she was hearing her for so many months in the beginning. She won't recognize the face, but she heard that voice since before she could even see her face. So of course it's gonna be familiar. So like son instinct, you know.
Yeah, and like Chim asks her what she wants to do, and Maddie says how she wants to go home. And I'm like, oh, finally. I mean, we all knew this was coming. Like, yeah, like, I just can't wait because we're gonna get Uncle Buck.
Finally.
Basically haven't gotten.
Yes, I want to see Uncle Buck with his niece finally.
So I swear if we see Taylor there, I will riot.
She hasn't moved in
But
yet.
yes, Uncle Buck.
It checks out subscription to see if Taylor's there.
Right.
I'm just like, I had this horrible thought of like her holding G or something, and I'm like, fuck no.
No.
Give me Eddie holding a baby. The last time we saw that, it did not go so well.
Right. That's
I'm
true.
sorry. Just thinking back to baby Chris. And
Yeah. It's like he wants you. Yeah.
I was just
When you're
saying,
because
with this.
was like
Right.
Christopher is what I was about to say.
yeah.
Oh yes, we want it all. I really liked these episodes. Honestly, 12 a little bit more than 11, but that's only just because Lucy and the kiss.
Absolutely
Like don't like that at all. I'm excited.
Right.
Mostly, I'm just excited for like Eddie's journey this season or this part of the season. Where like I know like a lot of his like stuff is coming up in like the next 2-ish episodes. Like the major stuff that has been hinted at is coming, I know. So I'm excited for that. Loved this.
Yeah, I agree 12 is better than 11. Even if we took Lucy and the kiss out, I think it would still be simply because it dealt with so many topics that's needed to be addressed. Very heavy topics. And I hope nobody went into this and was like not prepared for anything that happened. Because it was very heavy. But we needed this. And I really feel like, you know, we're getting huge mental health episodes and I'm so here for it. But because of all that, I love 12. 11, I love because of Eddie.
That's pretty much the reason why I would love it.
Right.
That's all there is. The calls were good. I actually liked the bomb call. The calls were good too.
That wasn't too bad, yeah.
But that's it. And it does leave me excited to see what happens next, if a little apprehensive. But it's going to be interesting seeing Maddie and Chim finally back in the main show, because I'm like, I don't know, I almost feel like it won't be the same dynamic, and I don't know how to do it. Also, please, for the love of God, Albert, shave the mustache before we see you next.
Yes, please. I think that's coming up because like he wrapped the show like probably decently around when this happened. So probably.
Yeah, it's hard to compare these two episodes because they were so different. So I don't like comparing them for what they were. I think they were both good episodes, but
they're definitely both still good.
Yeah, we would like to leave you guys off with resources, of course, just like 911 did, which I have to applaud 911 because they gave us the end part of the episode, and it's also on Hulu. It wasn't just on live TV where they had this part. It was everywhere where they did give resources, which I love that. I love that because past episodes of either show haven't necessarily given warnings or after, which I think I try to my best of my ability to give you guys warnings since I do watch live, just in general, online. I try to give warnings and stuff because the shows don't necessarily always do the best job with that, but great job with the end part. I really like that, but we would like to leave you guys off resources. So if you or someone you know is struggling, please call the National Suicide Prevention Hotline at 1-800-273-8255 or visit suicidepreventionlifeline.org.
There is help.
Yes.
There is.
And I think that
sorry, that is the US hotline.
It's national.
And so
it's national.
Yeah, it's national. So that may not work for you. So I encourage you to find your hotline in your country. And it can be easier to talk to these people than it is to talk to someone closer to you. So just keep that in mind too.
Yeah, and I think, I don't know, for those of you who don't know, I have another podcast and we talk a lot about this. In fact, we just did a whole episode about depression and anxiety and suicide. And I think it's just the most important is to know and be, remind you guys that there is help out there. And I think a lot of people fear that there isn't. And that's when the dark voices in your head really want to take over. And they're taking over by saying things like, oh, you don't need help. And, you can get help. And, even we're going to see more of this as Eddie gets help and, other people in the shows. TK is getting help. And we don't, there are resources.
And with Sarah's Lone Star will be back. Yay. I don't really. Yeah, 313.
I've missed it. The teasing has been horrendous.
See, everyone says it's been horrendous. Maybe it's just because I was on vacation this week and I literally didn't hear anything. But honestly, there's been literally nothing put out there.
I think that's
it. Listen, you.
Yeah, and that's I think it's the.
That's honestly funny. That it's typical, but it's also funny.
Let's just say I'm not used to being the one to post screenshots of things in our group text.
Yeah,
I'm usually the last one.
I was literally reading those on the beach. I was like, I can't read this. Yeah, I was trying to think if Ronan's on anything. Ronan's like,
okay, so here's my fear, and I think a lot of people have this, is that in 308, Ronan kept commenting that the plane was nothing compared to the rest of the episode, right? So all we got was the call for the promo, and then all Ronan says is the episode should have been just named Tarlos. And I'm like, by them not sharing anything makes me even worse. I'm like, what the heck is we gonna get?
With the promos they release, sometimes we know they're not going to give us just Tarlos in the promo. They're not very good at and depending what happens, they're not going to give us that. All I know is Ronan has. I was just looking to see what he's supposed to. Obviously, he gave us that Tarlos picture. He gave us a picture of TK in a car. He gave us a picture of TK looking very concerned. Yeah. Literally, kind of. I'm slightly terrified.
Yeah, and there's a video floating around of all the different characters saying TK's name. And there is a very small, quick clip in there of Carlos wearing glasses in the same clothes I think that he was wearing the night they got dosed. So that might be a scene in an upcoming episode.
I love how we said dosed.
Oh, yeah.
It's definitely drugged.
Drugged. Yeah, sorry.
I said the same thing, though. My first reaction was dosed.
But I'm excited, and I'm glad they're coming back. And from here on out, it will be full steam ahead for the rest of the season, so there won't be any more breaks, which will be nice.
Oh, yes, I'm excited.
I'm I just want the episodes. So.
Same. But it's also going to get to the point where it's going to be oh, I don't want there to be no new episodes.
Right.
I'm not ready.
Yeah. No, I think I saw something which said that the finale date is May 16th, and I'm just like,
yep.
That's so soon.
Right. It's 2 months. No, a month. I'm still thinking it's March. It's
just the worst.
April.
It's a month.
Man, my brain was saying the same thing.
Oh wow, we're doing great. Oh man,
amazing.
Thank you guys so much for joining us and listening. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast on Anchor. We're also on Spotify, Apple, and Google Podcasts, and everywhere where you can get your podcasts. On iTunes and Spotify, please rate us and leave us a review. It would mean a lot to us. You guys can follow the podcast on our socials at 91LS Roundup on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can also check out a Discord server. The link is down below and in our Instagram bio. And you guys can follow me, Katie, at Love of Tarlos on Instagram and at For Love of Tarlos on Twitter.
You guys can follow me, Grace, at Ronan Rafa 911 on Instagram and at SheepGirl31 on Twitter.
And you can follow me, EJ, at EJ8302 on Instagram and Twitter. Bye.
Bye.